So today we're going to be doing a science lesson and we're going to look at food chains. Now we're going to look at food chains over the next sequence of science lessons, so we'll become food chain experts. So first of all, we're going to start off with our little friend, Mrs. Gran. Now Mrs. Gran stands for some different special science words which we're going to look at now, and she shows us the things that all living plants and animals and humans need to be alive, okay? So things that people and animals need to be alive are movement. You need to be able to move, okay? Respiration, so that's when you're breathing, okay? And plants have their own version of how they breathe. Sensitivity, so that's when you can feel something, okay? Growth, so humans grow, animals grow, and plants grow. Reproduction, so that's being able to have babies or young of their own, okay? And with plants, that's scattering seeds for them to grow. Excretion, so that's getting rid of any waste, so that's going to the toilet, okay? And then nutrition, so that's taking in nutrients and food to be able to grow as well, okay? So let's start off then. So some animals get their food from eating plants, and these animals are called herbivores, okay? And I always look at the word herb to give me a bit of a clue there. So a herb, you might have some herbs at home like basil and chives, so that gives you a clue that they eat plants. So can you think of any herbivores? Have a little pause and think if you can tell your rattle if there's any herbivores you can think of. Okay, and think about some of the different things they could eat. There's a bit of a clue here with some grass, okay? So think about things like cows, they eat grass, don't they, to get their nutrients, and bunny rabbits might eat that as well. It can also be plants and vegetables and things too. So let's have a little look at some examples. So we've got kangaroos, we've got bunny rabbits like we just mentioned, sheep and lambs, we've got giraffe, tortoises, horses, butterflies. So all of these things eat plants, okay, and vegetables like we've just mentioned, like carrots and things too. So they eat things that grow. They don't eat any meat, which we're going to come on to in a second, okay? We've got some examples here. We've got bamboo, like pandas like to eat. We've got different types of leaves. We've got berries that some woodland creatures might find. We've got acorns. We've got corn down here, so a type of vegetable. So lots of different greenery, okay? Now, some animals get their food from eating other animals, okay? And these are called carnivores. Now, I know we've mentioned carnivores in the past, so I know you'll already have a little idea about what carnivores are. So can you think of any carnivores and think of some things that they might like to eat? There's a little bit of a clue here. So we've got lions. Think about lions. Do you think lions like to go and have a little nibble of some grass? No, they like to eat animals, don't they, to get their energy and their protein. Well, we've also got an owl here and a little mouse, so think about owls like to eat mice, don't they? So have a little think if you can think of any other carnivores. Got some examples here. So cats, they like to eat fish, don't they? So because that's an animal, they're a carnivore. We've got eagles, again, they like to grab mice. Sharks, they like to eat lots of creatures in the sea, don't they? Dolphins and things. We've got snakes, so they can actually open their mouths huge, can't they? To eat things like mice, rabbits, all sorts that they can find. And then tigers too, they like to eat meat. You might, if you've ever been to the zoo or the safari park, you might have seen a tiger being fed some meat as well. So they eat all these kinds of animals, and we've got some different examples there, okay, for those kinds. So some animals get their food from eating plants and animals. They're greedy, aren't they? So they're called omnivores, okay, so that's if they eat both. We've got an example here of a bear. So a bear might like to get some of his food from eating plants, certain types of plants, and some from meat like fish, okay? Have a little think at home if you can think of any carnivores and any examples of things that they might like to eat. Have a pause now and we'll have a little look. So these animals are omnivores. So we've got a sloth, we've got a little mice, we've got pigs, raccoons, or it might be, yeah, it's not a skunk, is it? Oh, we've got a skunk here. No, a badger, sorry. And we've got hedgehog, sorry, year two. So these are all omnivores. Now, they like to eat plants and animals. So here's some examples of the foods they like to eat. Okay. Now, we've got a little question here. Are humans herbivores, carnivores, or omnivores? What do we eat? So have a little pause now and think about what we like to eat. Do we like to eat meat? Do we like to eat vegetables? Do we eat a bit of both? Pause and have a little chat with your adult. Okay. Right, well, yeah, we would be omnivores, wouldn't we? Okay, well, some of us might be vegetarians. I know there's my mum's a vegetarian, so she would only eat vegetables and fruits, and she would be classed as a herbivore. However, I know I like to eat a bit of both, so I would be an omnivore, okay? You can think about what you are at home. Do you like to eat just meat, just vegetables, or do you like a little bit of both in your diet? Okay? So, what is a food chain? So, a food chain shows how each animal gets its food. Food chains are one of the ways that living things depend on each other to stay alive. So, without food chains, certain animals just would not be alive because they need that chain in order to stay alive, okay? Which will make more sense when we have a look at one in a second. In fact, we could look at this one. So the owl needs to be able to eat mice to stay alive. However, if that mice doesn't have little bugs and things to eat, little caterpillars and things, then that wouldn't survive. So it's really important that they're all in the chain. If one's taken out the chain, what would happen? Have a think. The chain would collapse, wouldn't it? And they wouldn't be able to survive. Okay, they would struggle to get their food. We're going to watch a little video now to tell us a little bit more about food chains.
What is a food chain? All living things, including humans, animals and plants, need energy to live. But where do they get their energy from? The answer is easy. All living things get their energy from food. Plants make their own food with the help of sunlight, air and water. Animals and humans don't produce their own food, so they need to eat plants or other animals to get energy and survive. They are all part of a food chain. A food chain shows how plants and animals depend on each other as their source of food. For instance, a caterpillar eats plants, mice eat caterpillars, and owls eat mice. They're a perfectly simple food chain. And we can see food chains happening underwater too. Algae is eaten by small fish are eaten by bigger fish, and bigger fish are eaten by sea lions, who are then eaten by sharks. There are lots of different food chains taking place around us, but food chains usually start with a plant and finish with a big, hungry animal. Like me.
So like we've just mentioned, we're part of food chains, aren't we? So that it all follows on, okay? If we meet on a plate, think about what that's eaten beforehand. So let's get back to our PowerPoint. So we've got some examples now of food chains, and in the video I mentioned about the food chains underwater. That's a lesson that's coming up in a couple of weeks, and we'll be looking at food chains in Cannock Chase. So we're going to look at all kinds of food chains. So this is just the start of it. Now the arrows in a food chain show that it's eaten by, okay? So here we've got this little caterpillar is eaten by the blackbird, which is eaten by the cat, okay? So that shows the flow of the chain. So can you name which animal is eating which in the food chain? Kind of giving me that one there, guys. So each food chain starts with a green plant. Green plants are called producers, okay? Because they produce their own food. So they use sunlight and they produce their own food. So we've got a green leaf, produces its own food. So it doesn't rely on anything else for its food, just the sunlight. And that's why it's a producer. So think about that producer, it produces the rest of the food chain, okay? All animals are called consumers because they consume food by eating plants and other animals. So anything that eats anything else in a food chain is a consumer. So think about consuming your food, you're eating as part of that food chain, okay? Just like the animals would be. And then animals that eat other animals are called predators. And we've learned about predators, haven't we, before? We've learned about alligators and all different kinds of predators in the Amazon rainforest. So these are animals that eat are called prey. Sorry, the animals that they eat are called prey. So if an animal gets eaten by another, that's the animal's prey. Okay, so here the little blackbird is prey for the predator cat that's going to eat it. Okay, so here we've got another little example. So we've got our producer and our consumers. Okay, and again, our producer is a green plant and consumers. We've got a little human there as an example. So we're going to now have a little look. I'd like you to pause at home and I'd like you to use some of these on the board and try and come up with your own food chain. Okay, so pause now and have a little go at that with your adult. Okay? And then finally, rearrange these things to make 2 food chains. Which habitats do these belong in? So think about habitats when we've done those previously. Where would they belong? What kind of habitat would they belong to? Okay? Right then, so we've got our task coming up now, and I've put a little word down here to help you. So if you want to label your food chain with words like consumers, producers, predators and prey, then you can use that to help you with your spellings. And there's a little example of one here for you to help. But basically, you need to come up as 2 challenges. Challenge 1 is with 3 different things in your food chain, okay? So you're going to need a producer, a green plant, something that eats that green plant, and then the top predator, okay? If it's a top predator, that means it's not eaten by any other predators, okay? It's the top predator of that food chain, okay? Just like a lion would be, for example. Nothing really eats a lion, so that would be the top predator, okay? And there's 2 for you to complete. If you want to challenge yourself, this one has got 4 boxes, so it's a bit of a longer food chain for you to think about more, okay? So you can have a go at that. And we've got the arrows. You might add your arrows into the bottom one. I've put some little cards. If you get a bit stuck, they could give you a bit of a clue. But you guys could have the 60 of you in year 2. You could have 60 different food chains. There's loads, okay? So have a little go at that. Label it as well with words like producers and consumers, and that will be brilliant, okay? So send your work in to me, Mr. Ray, and we'll love to see you. Enjoy!